In the arena tonight, the Republicans showed America and Canada what they have to offer. Predictably, the media party refused to report the truth. The rumble is here, striking teachers, striking hockey players, and whether Marion has forgiven David for last week's scolding. Being arrested for being a good Canadian, how the police have become political and politicians act like bully police. We speak to a pair of, well, criminals. When we come back, I'm still laughing. Political policing, Caledonia, Ontario. Be a Canadian, go to jail. Bloody criminals, lock them up, throw away the key, or things like that. I've got two here. We're going to introduce them in a few moments' time. Two men who were incarcerated. The police never do anything wrong. The law is always right. Politicians are perfect. Stuart Laughton, Ted Harlson. Gentlemen, welcome to you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
How long did you spend in prison?
At least an hour, and 3 hours in custody, I would say.
Yeah, I would say 3 hours are over.
Okay, and an hour of that in a cell.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do?
We laughed. We laughed.
You laughed?
Yeah. There were 4 or 5 other people in the cell with us, including Gary McHale, well known in the Caledonia area.
I mean, didn't mean what did you do in prison. I mean, that's entirely up to you, and, you know, we live in a free society.
I'm sorry.
No, I mean,
why were we in prison?
Yes, and I know what I've seen Oz. I know what goes on. Why were you put in prison in the first place? I mean, I know you. I've been to your home, and you're a model citizen. I assume you're the same. You got a tie on. Why were you arrested?
We were arrested in order to prevent a breach of the peace.
To prevent?
Yes, in Caledonia on what some people call disputed lands. Now, there's a lot of native protesters. This is not condoned by their own elected Six Nations Council, but the protesters illegally claim ownership of land, and they want the police to keep me and Ted off because we're the wrong skin color or with the wrong political persuasion. And because the police know we will be assaulted by the native protesters if we go onto the property, they arrest us so they can't get at us. And so peace has been maintained.
Now, I think most viewers probably are familiar with the situation, but if not, this is Caledonia, Ontario.
Yes.
Allegedly disputed land, where government, federal and provincial and municipal, and the police have just bent over backwards. The police have literally, we know this, police have literally turned their backs sometimes to not look at crimes that are being committed. People are being kidnapped, assaulted, tortured, threatened. One man will be permanently disabled because of an attack that took place. You went to look, because you don't live in Caledonia.
I live in Burlington.
You live in Burlington?
I live in Brampton.
You live in Brampton. Why did you go along to Caledonia?
Because ideas matter. Ideas are very important to me, and especially the ideas of civil law, upholding equal law for everybody, not just for certain groups or races of people.
Now, I mean, you mentioned skin color. You're white. You're whitey as anything.
Manifestly.
Whiter than me. If you don't mind me asking, because you have the same skin color as my children do. What is your background?
My background is part Native, and although I do not identify as being Native, my ideas are my own. If you must ask, I'm Shuswap from British Columbia, as a background,
so
and Norwegian.
And Norwegian?
Yeah, a mix.
Yeah, quite a mix, yeah. Where do they meet? Some Reykjavik or somewhere in the middle? But you're part Native, so surely, though, you should be one of the demonstrators. Look, let's be honest. You are more Native than many of the people, if not sometimes most of the people who are demonstrating. I've met some of them. That there are the white lefty protesters. There are people who are so tenuously Native, it's hard to believe they are. Yet you're there and you're arrested by the police because if they don't arrest you and take you away, you may be beaten up by allegedly Native protesters.
Yes, this only shows that it's not really about race, which they claim with their signs of white supremacy and racism signs against Canis. It's definitely about politicized policing. And it's very much against who they favor, which I don't think, it breaks objective law. I mean, the criminal code is objective law.
Yes.
But when they start following policies and ideas that are non-objective, then of course they're going to run into problems that conflict with proper policing.
It's quite incredible. I see this replicated elsewhere, where the police will say, for your protection, we're going to take you away, humiliate you, abuse you, and arrest you. I've seen this at gay pride parades. We saw this at the so-called Al-Quds Day garbage that went on. So rather than saying to the protesters, you have no right to assault people. If you try to, we will arrest you. They said, we're going to put you in a cell to make sure that we don't have to do our job properly.
Yes, there are many parallels with the G20 summit where large numbers of innocents were arrested. The police believe the current policing model, born, bred, raised in Caledonia, is to make a large show of police force, in part to intimidate us, in part just to be present, and basically arrest innocent parties. And guilty parties are either not arrested or they're arrested weeks later or months later on video evidence, which is more tenuous and harder to prove. And Gary McHale, of course, has been having these protests fairly regularly in Caledonia. September, though, is Freedom Month in Caledonia. And at 2 p.m. On every Sunday, and there are 5 in September, anyone can join us, beginning in the Lions Club parking lot, and we'll go. I would suggest people just come and watch what happens. They can learn a lot. Is there an email or a website that they can contact? Yes. Ted referenced an organization called CanAce, but in fact...
Now, again, CanH?
CanAce, A-C-E are the last 3 letters, Canadians for Charter Equality. But the website we would like you to visit is 4 words as one, CaledoniaWakeUpCall.com. Okay, Caledonia Wake Up Call, all in one, all together? So Caledonia Wake Up Call, because I would like a lot of people to go along. I've got a sneaking feeling someone like David Menzies might go there with some cameras. The police aren't so keen on cameras. They get a bit panicky. If enough Canadians go along, enough decent, law-abiding, ordinary Canadians go along, surely the police have to think again. They must, and there's also an enormous cost associated with these police gatherings. You know, officers are brought in from out of town. This is not our problem. If the broken window had been corrected years ago, 6 years ago in Caledonia, a second window wouldn't have been broken and the police cars wouldn't have been burned and all this stuff. What did the cops say to you?
The police, I followed Gary McHale as soon as I saw him arrested. See, I wasn't going to do anything, but as soon as I saw Gary McHale arrested, I said, this is not right. I can't stand by and do nothing. So I followed him onto the field to go on to the rally. And so I knew that I was going to get arrested too. And that's what happened.
Well, what do they say? I mean, because the police, I mean, I know they have this officious, robotic approach sometimes, but they're also humans. I mean, some of them, they must cringe that they have to do this. They must know that you're the good guys.
Yes, I did see them cringe, and I also realized a lot of them did not stand up for their conscience, rather than
they obeyed orders, did they?
Yes. And they told me to get back behind the line, and I said, no, I can't do that. I'm going to follow Gary McHale. I'm going to follow this idea of the rally, a peaceful walk, and I'm going to do it regardless of the consequences, which was getting arrested.
By Canadians in Canada, often flying the Canadian flag. They've been told not to fly the Canadian flag. It might be insulting and offensive to people. And I don't understand why there aren't more Canadians who are incredibly angry at what is going on here.
I'd like to make a point that we don't know who the next Premier of Ontario will be and what racial groups he will favor. This could backfire terribly on these Native protesters who, if the new Premier privileges white people, will be seeking and getting Gary's help.
I will be very surprised if Ontario does have a Conservative government. And even if it does, I think you will find, just as with the Harper government in Ottawa, they'll turn their backs. They're frightened. They're frightened of accusations of racism. They're frightened of the Native lobby, of left-wing groups, and it's, I'm ashamed, deeply troubling. Gentlemen, if you get arrested again, don't come to me. I can't be bothered. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
When we come back, now, whatever your view is on same-sex marriage, your right to have an opinion contrary to the status quo, does it exist? You'll find out, probably not.